something that has, proactive and felt like it was moving forward, which is how we believe that people should be thinking about their cybersecurity. And we landed on Defendify, which we felt was a really strong representation of the things that we were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and then Andrew, can you tell us a little bit more about this new platform and exactly what it is?
Absolutely. So again, Rob mentioned, and I've mentioned, it's a SaaS-based product. So essentially, you can go online and you can engage with the product in a few different plan levels in a traditional SaaS approach. So we did that purposely so that it was something that our audience would be able to understand and adopt, because that's a problem with cybersecurity, is the solutions are often complicated and very expensive. So by taking all that we were doing as a consultant and digitizing those services, over 20 modules through those 3 layers of foundation, culture, and technology, it resulted in a product that was almost self-service, or something that, like Rob said, a business owner, a CFO, an IT manager, or IT resource could jump in there and manage cybersecurity. So the goal of the product is to provide that simplified access to a holistic set of tools, reports, alerts and notifications, documents, and scoring, all in one place. That's one of the things that we kept hearing was, I love the idea of doing cybersecurity, I just don't know how. Can you educate me on that? And where do I stand? And that was really important for us. And so we've built in the concept of being able to kind of grade yourself to say, all right, I'm a B- in cybersecurity right now for my organization. And here's some of the recommendations for improving that. And this is how Defendify can help you to do those things.
And I'll give you some examples of some of the things you can do in the platform. So as Andrew spoke about there, you can do an assessment to see where you stand, where you're strong, where you're weak, where you can make improvements. You can develop policies and incident response plans within the platform. You can train your team on cybersecurity and actually conduct phishing simulations to see if they click on what looks like phishing emails, click on links, open files, and so on. And you can actually deploy technology to your computers and mobile devices, and whole slew of other technology that goes beyond traditional antivirus and firewalls.
Yeah, and I think really, just to bring it to a close, the undercurrent of what we're trying to accomplish is simplification. We call it straight talk, not tech talk. It's a very complicated subject with a lot of moving parts. So our content strategy behind the scenes is to be able to communicate these things in simple terms so that everybody can understand them, engage with it, and again, sleep better at night because they have a good feel for where they are and the things that are being done to protect their organization.
Yeah, and I love that whole idea of simulating, certain things, sending tests to employees, and that way you really get to see where they are, gauge the level of.
Absolutely, you have to be doing it in an ongoing capacity. It's, we'll tell you that it's not a project, it's a posture. It's just kind of like your health. You need to be thinking about it and taking care of it all the time. Even if you feel like you're pretty healthy and maybe you do all the right things, you're still subject to things that might not be preferable. So you want to be proactive with your approach and thinking of it as a mindset and not a one-time thing. Yeah,
good point. And I know the company's been experiencing just tremendous growth in a little over a year. Andrew, did you want to address the growth of the company? I know you started out as 2 people, and now you're up over double digits in employees. So that's really good to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a wild ride over the last year plus. Rob and I started the company on a whim and on a vision, and we built it over the last year plus. We started in a small office, just the 2 of us, a couple hundred square feet. Got to 3-4 people, and decided it was time and we needed to embrace a larger office. So as we shaped the business plan around the technology and the platform we were building, it necessitated onboarding engineers to be able to develop the product, requirements planning, essentially everything you need to do to stand this up in a proper. And we were doing this all internally, and then we were going to support that with marketing. And we brought marketing in fairly early because marketing, when you think about content strategy in a platform and you think about how people engage with software, the marketing is part of that. How do we talk to people? How do we communicate things? How do we fulfill that brand promise of being simple for the end user? So we brought those folks in a little bit early. So we went from I think 3 on January 1st to we're 13 now, with a couple more coming on board, and moving into another office as we've kind of blown out of our next office, and things are going great. So it's been an awesome growth story.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Now, Rob, we had a discussion a few weeks back about, a lot of this, and there was some interesting conversation about, the biggest cyber challenges companies are facing today. Can we get into that a little bit? Some of the things that you're seeing from companies today, their challenges.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge here, there's many of them, but to start off with, when we speak about small business, one of the biggest challenges is that people think it's complicated. When they talk about cybersecurity, they're confused. When they go into the market and read about it, what they're figuring out is, wow, I don't really know what this means and whether I'm in a good spot or not, or what I need to do. So that leaves them in a tough spot. And the other part about this is that when you dig in there and you start looking at what their cybersecurity posture looks like, it's not very pretty. Many organizations, their cybersecurity protection is simply maybe some antivirus on their computers. Maybe they have a firewall between the internet connection and the network, and that's virtually about it. And so as a challenge, in addition to that, they're seeing this third-party push-down thing occurring. So many of them today have limited protection. They don't have, the 3 layers that we're talking about, and their customers are starting to come to them and say, hey, if you want to continue to do business with us, they're big corporate customers, you have to have a proper cybersecurity posture, and we want to know all about it. How are you protecting our data? When you come in here and you touch our network, how do we know that you're doing that securely? So it's a challenge for these business owners and the folks who are leading those businesses to now be able to say, where do I start? And if they go out in the marketplace and they start doing research in cybersecurity, they're going to find hundreds, if not thousands, of different companies and solutions, and really, really tough thing to navigate with. And the best place to really start from a cyber challenge perspective is developing multiple layers. And I'll give some tips here. So it really starts with, in our opinion, with policies. You really need to set the guidelines and rules as to how everybody inside your organization is using computers, mobile devices, applications. And it's not just for the employees, it's for the contractors as well, because many of them have access to same access that employees have. And if you really think about a lot of these small businesses, they might have a technology use policy that's a couple paragraphs long that says, be a good person when you go on the internet. But it really needs to get a lot deeper than that. It needs to talk about, how they're using passwords, and the fact that they shouldn't be downloading software, and a number of different things. And you've got to set those rules, and you can't just put it into the drawer and sort of leave it there. You need to be training to this policy on a regular basis and having a leadership conversation with the entire company about why it's so important. And then that comes down to the training side next, is that we know that there's a huge human error element here when we talk about cybersecurity. So, it can't just be about technology. You need to train your team from front to back, everybody inside the organization, on how they should have a cybersecurity posture and what to look for. So as an example, we know that 90% of cyber attacks are starting with, that's the most recent statistic, starting with a phishing email. So training them on how to identify what those look like, so that they don't get fooled and interact with those emails is vitally important. But that's just even really the starting point. There's a bunch of different things you need to train them on, especially today your finance team, who might be, people might be attacking them from a wire fraud perspective, and a number of other things. And then we start getting into layers of testing. So big question here is, the technology they have in place, your computers, your firewall, is it set up properly? And you really don't know unless you begin doing some testing. So doing ethical hacking is a great process to go through to have a professional do an assessment and see if there's places where you need to make improvements, things are set up properly. And then also looking into vulnerabilities on your devices and on your networks to make sure that you've patched and you've updated and done things like that. And then finally, technology is obviously a huge part of this as well. You need to deploy technology that does go deeper than traditional antivirus and firewalls, and make sure that you have a really comprehensive solution. And that's why we built Defendify, so that we could bring all these different things together, into 20 modules in one place.
And it's also, just to add one thing, it's with the understanding that everybody's got IT resources, and we know that. So we're working, we're not working to replace IT. We're actually working hand in hand with IT to be able to run some of these tests, gauge what some of the gaps are, and help patch those things. So, they're usually overwhelmed with day-to-day operational stuff. They're there to make sure the business is running, and they don't always have an opportunity to get into cybersecurity. They can scratch the surface with it. So we're finding a lot of attention coming from IT saying, I love a product like Defendify to be able to come in and kind of address all these layers in a single place, so that we can have a better posture as an organization, and I can focus on kind of firefighting, which is what I do a lot.
Yeah, good point, Andrew. And Rob, I know you're working closely with the integrator community, and from my experiences at TSA Tech and other conferences, they're really trying to wrap their heads around how can they sell cybersecurity, how could they offer cybersecurity solutions. Can you talk a little bit about how, what kind of opportunity is there for them, and how you could possibly help them as well?
I think there is a huge opportunity for the systems integrator community to bring cybersecurity solutions to their customers. And that's for a number of different reasons. I think one reason is the fact that they're sitting across the table with the IT teams and the business owner with the other solutions that they're providing. And they have an opportunity there to start talking to them about cybersecurity and solutions that they might be able to offer. The other side is many of them are being asked by the customers they're working with about cybersecurity. So the conversation's even coming towards them, whether the question is, what does your cybersecurity posture look like? Or, hey, you guys do security? Do you mean cybersecurity? And opening up that conversation. And so we've had a massive interest. We have many of them who are coming on board as partners through our partner program here at Defendify, who want to bring cybersecurity to their customer base, and get the benefit of having a recurring revenue stream, and also being able to now have a new solution in their portfolio that separates them from perhaps the competition around the corner. We know that systems integration is a competitive marketplace, and if you can separate yourself as a cybersecurity leader, you really could put yourself in a position to win more business and separate yourself from the competitor.
Yeah, you're right, and that's it's great that they have a solution like this to be able to offer that type of security. And I wanted to make sure we got into this topic. We have some 3 or 4 minutes left, so we can get into this. This leadership talk, so we try to get into leadership styles. Andrew, do you want to maybe tackle this first? What's the leadership style for you and Rob and for the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me take things up one level and kind of tell you about how we think about leadership. And it really starts with a system or a framework that we use called EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So there's a number of business frameworks out there. I've had a lot of great experience with EOS, and it's taught us quite a bit. It's taught me in past businesses and now here at Defendify that there's 2 key roles in a business. One of them at the top is a visionary role, someone who is high in emotion, has a lot of great ideas, but maybe not all of them are good, but one of them takes the business to the next level. Operating with big relationships and looking at R&D. And on the other side of the visionary, there's usually an integrator. The integrator is the one who finds that idea out of all the ideas the visionary comes up with, helps to execute it, performs on the logic side a little bit more than the emotion side, and really works to remove the obstacles and barriers and impediments that get in the way of actually accelerating the business. So at the top level, we look at leadership through those 2 roles, and Rob being on the visionary side and myself being on the integrator side. And what EOS tells you is if you bring those 2 things together in a healthy way and you acknowledge it and you work towards those strengths, you can accelerate your business and grow quickly and in a very healthy way. And they've proven that over and over with their methodology. So we really loved that thinking and have seen it over and over again in our past experiences. So the first thing we did when we started the company was to talk about those roles and to see how we fit into those, because we felt like they were things that we were aligned with. And once we understood that was right, then we really hit the ground running. The next thing we did is we took a hard look at what our core values were. And you hear that a lot in kind of corporate talk. but it's not something that always makes its way to small business. And when it does make its way to small business, sometimes it's more aspirational than genuine. And one of the first things we did in starting the company was say, what are our core values? Not what do we want them to be, but what are they? And how do we then embody those through the building of this company and through everything that we do? And once we were able to do that, we were able to hit the ground running. And it goes back to the enabling that growth, because we had a common conversation going between us as to who was at the top and what they were doing, what their role and responsibility within the organization was from a visionary and integrator perspective, and what are the core values that run through everything we do, and how do we use those to make decisions. And we fundamentally do use those values. We have 4 of them here, and we say, when we're hiring somebody, we're checking those boxes off to make sure that people are aligned with what we're doing here as a company and the characteristics we want to embody as leaders. And when we do that, we have great success. So Rob will tell you the same. We've got an amazing team, the 13 that we talk about, ourselves included. The folks that are working with us, we feel like they embody those values. They understand the visionary and integrator role, which we share with them when they come on board. And it really clears the air in terms of expectations and really sets us on a path. I think one of the analogies EOS uses, which I think is great to kind of visualize it, is if we're all rowing in a rowboat rowing in one direction, we all have to be rowing at the same speed, and of course in the same direction. So the leadership styles get aligned, the team is behind the core values, and you're able to kind of accelerate that. It doesn't help if Rob's rowing 80 miles an hour and I'm rowing 60. We're both going forward, but it might create some chop in the water. So we really leverage that, and we're able to kind of accelerate the growth of the company based on those things.
It's very cool. I'm glad you both think about it, at such a high level. Well, that concludes this week's webcast. Thank you, Andrew and Rob. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We appreciate it too. Thanks so much.
Yes, and I'll see everyone next week. And thanks for tuning in, everyone.